Well, hello all. I was fairly oblivious until about a year ago on these Rough Rider knives. And about a year ago when I seen them, I thought, man, they look pretty good. But I started looking them up and I found out they were made in China. And I'm always a little squeamish with that because you just never know what you're going to get. And sometimes you wish you hadn't spent the money and it was a waste of money. So I'm a little leery with all that, but I finally bit the bullet on it, and I got me one of these Rough Rider canoes in the canoe pattern in the black micarta handles. And really, it's a fairly impressive knife. I got it from Chicago Knife Works, and I paid $9 for it. $9 and some change. There's still one there. They've got multiple different scale options, but I have to say this one was very nice. And one of the things when you look up these knives, if you're not familiar with them, you always hear, oh, they're good for the money. And that always just made me think, well, what does that really mean? Because if you get a $2 knife and you really need to cut a rope and you make a couple cuts with it and it falls apart, well, it was worth the money because it was able to do, what you needed to with it. But these ones, they kept saying, they're good for the money. They're good for the money. It's worth the money. It's like, okay, I got to get one and figure out what that means. So I bought one. I have to say, I'm not disappointed in it. For a $9 knife, they far exceed my expectations. With that said, I have a buck canoe knife. It was made in China. And I think it's going now. I bought it years ago, but they're going now for over $30. So for that same amount of money, you could buy 3 of these and still have change left over, or buy 3 of these and pay shipping for the price of that one buck knife that's still made probably in a factory down the road in China, as this one is. So I wanted to show it off and give you some of my thoughts. One, I really like the blades on it. They're thicker than the buck is. The buck I had was like a 370 or 389. But the blades are a little thicker. I know some people don't like that RT on there. I kind of like it. I like the blade markings right here on them. And the buck, I will say, I quit carrying it after a while because it was so loose opening it that if I'm doing woodworking projects, I have a habit of going like this and scoring a piece of wood where it needs cut or whatever. And I did that one day. My fault, not the knives, but that thing folded up and cut my finger really good, and it took a while to get it stop bleeding. And I did the redneck thing. I took toilet paper and electrical tape and got it clotted and stopped bleeding, but it did take a while. This knife, I wouldn't, being that it was so much cheaper, I didn't know what to think on it, what to expect, but I have to say, man, that's got a really nice half stop on it. You can probably hear it. I'll shut up so you can hear it. And then close. And then a little pin blade on it. I've seen a lot of these pin blades set a little bit higher, and this one sets lower, and it's nice for carrying the knife, not so much for opening it up. It's got a nice blade on it too. This would be good too for marking wood where you need to cut it or doing some finer stuff with it. So far, I've carried this knife probably 20 or so hours, maybe 30 hours it's been in my pocket. I will give them credit for this. It came sharper than a Case Barlow knife that I ordered. The Barlow knife that I ordered from Case, it had a big burr on the whole side of it along the edge, so I had to sharpen it. This one came sharp out of the box. I don't know if you can see it. But if a person, the economy kind of sucks, everything's higher right now than what it should have been, but if you got 10 bucks and it's burning a hole in your pocket, you can't go wrong with one of these. And if nothing else, if you want a pattern design to see if you would want to carry it, like maybe you do want the case version of this. Well, that's $70. A case canoe knife will put you back about 70 bucks. For less than $10, you could buy this one and figure out whether or not you like the design of it and you would want to carry it. And then you could always save up your money and go buy the other one. But if you're a young man starting out and you're kind of like everybody else and you're broke when you're starting out, or you're younger man, you're working a minimum wage job and you're just trying to put back some money and you got 10 bucks and you'd like a nice quality knife, this one will fit the bill. And in a lot of ways, it would actually be better than a case knife, because one, if you end up losing this one, you're not going to cry near as much on it. I've got a friend, and he uses those high dollar, I think Spyderco and Benchmade, I think's the other one, and he loses one or two of them a year. So he's spending $300 or $400 a year on knives to lose. And I'll give him this: they are beautiful knives, but I don't know how he handles losing that much money every year. Occasionally I'll get a text from him. He'll be all excited he found one, out in the brush or something like that, or this tree stand. But if you lose this, I would still mourn the loss of this knife, but not nearly to the extent of a $200 knife. And then, if you get a case knife, case is kind of the standard, and a lot of knife companies compare themselves to that. That's why they try to imitate them, and this one's no different. So if you got a case knife and you paid $70 for it, and you're walking down the street and you got that thing out of, in your pocket, in your hand or whatever, you pull it out to use it and you drop it and it gets a big old scratch along the side, or if it's that bone and you crack the bone out of it, well, you took a $70 knife and you automatically downgraded it to $40 or $50. This knife right here, $9. If I pull this thing out and I put a big scratch in it, or if I drop it and it busts a little bit out or cracks it or something like that, I took a $9 knife and I made a $5 knife out of it. And that's a difference of $4 versus losing $20 or $30 on a knife. One way they do kind of not compare to case as far as quality. Like I said, I've carried this thing for 20 some hours, maybe 30 hours at the most, and I carry it in the what they call the watch pocket in your blue jeans. It's that little pocket inside the right hand side pocket, and you can see how much these bolsters have been scuffed up, and they've got little lines and stuff on them after just that amount of time. That case Barlow that I got, I've already carried it for a couple hundred hours, and it's not scuffed up like this. But then again, the Barlow was a $75 knife. This is a $9 knife, and I'm not a collector. Anything I get, I use. I just don't have a whole lot of use for something that I can look at but not touch. It just doesn't make sense to me to have that. The case was real nice, and didn't have this gap in there. I don't know if you can tell, but that's a pretty good gap. It's a little post-it note, it'll fit in there. But once again, it's a $9 knife. That doesn't make it bad. That just means you got to clean it out every now and then. So these were just my thoughts. I know there's probably a lot of other folks on the fence about a knife like this or the Rough Rider brand, and I just wanted to give you my 2 cents. It's not a case. It'll never be a case, but that's all right. It's just different. And if you got 10 bucks and you want a nice knife, this one will do it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this knife. And in a lot of ways, like I said, comparing it to that buck canoe I have, This knife is as good or better as that buck, and that buck costs $30. The buck canoe I actually have, it has the fake antler or bone on it, and that knife, they don't make it anymore, so it sells on eBay now for $40 or $50. And before I'd spend, if I was a guy wanting something, before I'd spend $40 or $50 on another Chinese made knife, I'd definitely take a look at these. I guess what I read online is correct. It is well worth the money, but it's well worth the money even if it was double or triple the price. If this was a $30 knife and you're comparing it to the $30 buck knife, it is still worth the money. It would be a toss-up which one to choose at that point, but this is a very fine knife, even if it is $9. It's a fine knife, and it just happens to be $9. And if you want to compare it to the Case Canoe, I've looked at them, I've just not bit the bullet on them. You'd be hard pressed, because you could buy 7 of these for a Case Canoe, and I probably will end up with a Case Canoe, just because it's an American made knife. If you do have some problems with it from the factory, you can send it back. This one you might be able to send it back, but you're going to have so much money in shipping it back and everything, it wouldn't be worth it for a cheap knife. That would be the downside of these. There's still a great big ocean between us and China. Even if this goes to, I think Smoky Mountain Knife Works down there that owns the branding on this, you still have to ship it back. One thing I will say, I got 2 of these Rough Rider knives, and I got a Case and I got a Bear & Sons knife. And the Case and the Bear & Sons, they came in these little cardboard boxes with wax paper around them. And these knives right here, the 2 Rough Riders, they came in nice size cardboard boxes that are kind of tough built, and they got a magnet that opens and shuts on them. And my wife doesn't know anything about knives, and I showed them all to her, and I just kept my mouth shut. And she seen what these Rough Riders came in, and she's like, "Oh, that's really nice. Those are really nice." And I explained to her that they're the cheapest knives. They were the cheaper knives, but they do very well in their presentation too. So, are they good for money? Absolutely. They punch way above their belt. They cut way above their belt. They are a good quality knife, regardless of where it's made at, regardless of what it costs. It is still a very nice quality knife. Well, compared to Case, pretty close. Pretty close. Not quite, but pretty close. Considering it's, a 7th or an 8th, maybe even a 10th of the cost, it really punches well above what its price point is at. So there you go. That's my thoughts. That's my 2 cents. They're a nice knife regardless of the price. Maybe that's a better way of saying it than everybody saying, "Oh, it's worth the money." Well, it is worth the money, and it's worth more than the money. So, all right, guys. Hope that helps somebody. Y'all have a good day. Bye.